Thank you for inviting me to speak today. I just want to do a short talk, really, just highlighting my experience I've had over the last 8 or 9 months doing some river restoration work with the Trust. That's my email address there. If you've got any queries afterwards, please email me or come and see me at coffee break and things. So basically, the key steps that I think are really important come down to about 7 or 8 things. And technical expertise is really important in this, and also working in partnership. So first, you need to really identify what and where you want to target. And this, obviously, for us, needs to really align with Water Framework Directive objectives, which Trevor sort of touched on a little bit already, but trying to get our rivers into good ecological status. So in Suffolk, we looked at ecosystem services opportunity mapping to help with this, looking for areas of particular risk, areas of particular opportunity, and built up a sort of map process to target those WFD issues. And we also did extensive consultation with the Suffolk Catchment Partnership, involving lots of different organisations, and basically came up with a list of projects that we thought were going to help to address these. And the process really highlighted the importance of good evidence and data within that to actually allow us to target things properly. There's an example of the map, and that's on the website if you want to have a look. But you can get probably the idea from that. It's, where you've got dark areas and more critical areas, and you can take various different layers on and off. It's quite useful to have a look at. So projects we came up with were the Upper Deben Diffuse Agricultural Pollution Management Project, working alongside a holistic water management project in the county already. Mid-Deben sort of channel enhancements and dike restoration. Bramford backwater enhancements and again dike restoration, and Sandling's diffuse management agricultural projects as well. And some of those have evolved a bit further. So in Bramford we've taken in some water meadow and sort of dike and pond improvement work as well. And to implement these, we really took quite a project plan approach, I suppose, from the beginning to try and identify all of the different aspects to deliver one of these projects. They are complicated, and actually getting to a stage of actually getting them onto the ground and delivered does involve lots of different aspects. So we had a kind of project plan approach, and we managed the risks, right from the start. But critically, you need to really identify your key stakeholders right at the beginning, and that for us was obviously working with some really important landowners and also managers. If you haven't got people to work with, you can't deliver the restoration projects. And then with those people, you need to really identify, can you identify joint aims? Do you have a common goal and a common purpose? At that stage, hopefully, if you do, you can draw up your outline designs and look at your potential locations. These sorts of things you may be looking at, woody shelves or berms, and there are loads and loads of examples out there available on all sorts of websites, and lots of information from people like the Environment Agency and the Wild Trout Trust, people who are doing this kind of work. So there's a lot of experience to draw on. As soon as you've identified those, you really need to look at your ecological assessment, because obviously that can affect where you can put your projects and potentially the scope of the work quite extensively. On the Mid-Deben, with one of our projects, we found that we were finding waterfall burrows, fortunately, all over the place, which was great, but we couldn't put some of our projects where we really wanted to do them because waterfalls were there and they had to really take the priority. So once you've done that, you can really hopefully look at developing the detailed designs. So each different stretch may have something, obviously on areas like the Deben, we've got low dissolved oxygen and low flows. So there we were looking at putting sort of in-channel morphological enhancements in, so debris and that sort of thing. So that's where you can get into the detail of the design. Those will provide habitat diversity and refuge for fish and invertebrates, which are both key elements of WFD as well. And on the floodplain, and trying to reconnect the Deben there, we restored about 600 metres of dike as well, profiling it suitably so it's better, hopefully, for wildlife than how it was before. And again, that's sort of creating refuge and things for fish as part of WFD, but also we built in waterfall enhancement things there as well, and sort of design and shape and things, so we could actually improve things for them as well, hopefully. Here is one of the projects up on the Mid-Deben, just halfway there on one of the dikes we were restoring. And that's where we worked with the landowner and Suffolk Wildlife Trust extensively to implement that project. Also, really wanted to highlight the importance of being able to engage other expertise. It's been really, really helpful because hydrology and geomorphology is so important to this process. And we were very lucky to have support from the Environment Agency in our designs and assessing the amount of mud we actually needed to pull out of the dikes, and making sure that we were doing things in sort of correct coordination, if you like, with the levels that are in the rivers. So that's really, really important. And I think whilst you can have that theoretical guide that you've probably scientifically assessed, you also have to accept and acknowledge and realise on the day that it also comes down to the expertise of the people you're working with who are actually driving the diggers, and actually their feel and their experience that they bring to the job, because obviously they've been doing it for very many years and can actually work things out on the site as things progress that day. So that's also really important. So working with experienced contractors is key. So once obviously you need to identify your landowners initially you're going to work with, but you also need to identify your other big stakeholders and key stakeholders in that. So we were working with Suffolk Wildlife Trust Water for Wildlife project on the Mid-Deben, but also at Bramford. And we've been working with some local groups as well, such as the Bramford Open Space Group, to implement projects that are on the Gipping in Bramford. But in parallel to all of that, you need to be undertaking your statutory and non-statutory sort of consultation. So talking to naturally and other people about biodiversity issues, or the County Council about rights of way, tree protection orders. There are all sorts of aspects you need to consider. And you need to take forward the consenting process, so that can take up to 8 weeks for flood drainage consent. So you need to allow time for that, and you need to provide quite a lot of information for that process as well. Within that, you want to consider the flood risk issues, potentially of water restoration projects, river restoration projects, and that can be quite comprehensive. And there may be other additional consents that are needed as well from the Environment Agency, depending on the exact scope of your project. So that can be quite a large area of work. What I found really helpful is being able to have pre-application discussions with the Environment Agency about the projects, and they really help to sort of steer the level of detail that's required and highlight any particular points. So all of these really require strong working relationships, and I think building those from the beginning is really important for your stakeholders, and trying to maintain good communication throughout the project was really important. I think you need to be flexible and manage risks and be ready to sort of replan things. Water vole burrows may appear where they weren't initially. That's wildlife. That's what happened to us on one of our projects on the Deben. Contractors may not be available exactly when you thought they were going to be. The landowner may suddenly change their mind slightly about something. So you have to be very flexible and work with that and be ready to replan things quickly. But keep the big picture in view, and hopefully you'll make a difference on the ground. And this is just to finish up some of our work we've been doing at Bramford. That's the beginning of the work. It now looks much more sort of profiled and how we'd like it to be. Quite a large area of dike restoration off the Gipping. And here at the southern end of the Gipping, on the meadow, south of sort of Ship Lane and the bridge, if anybody knows that area, we've restored an area of dike there as well, and there's going to be some pond dipping platforms and some walkways and things going into that area. So it's an environmental education project, element to that project as well. Lastly, I just want to say thank you to our sponsors, to the Environment Agency, for our work and for all their sort of technical input and aspects of the projects a lot of the time, and also to all of our stakeholders, such as the landowners and the other partners that have worked with us on it so far. And this is just the last little slide of some otter prints that we had on that second or third day of our project on the Deben. We went back one morning very early and found that the otters had already been into one of our dikes and investigated them. So that was a nice little token of appreciation. Thank you very much.